How's everybody doing? It's cold outside. I've been told that I need to be better at defining what it is that makes my method different from other people's, and I guess the problem I always have with it is that, you know, it's hard to get online and create content about the thing that you do without coming across as egotistical, or like you're bragging, or like you think you're better. It's hard to not look like you're in competition with others when you have a product or an idea that you are trying to spread throughout the world. Now, why would I want to spread my idea, my method, around the world or around the country? And so I'll start with that. I talk to people all day long that contact me about getting their hair done. They see my videos, they see my before and afters, and they can tell that something's different about my method. The appearance is different, the education is different, my belief system about dreadlocks might even be different, I don't know. But they then will go around to locticians in their area if they can find one, and they'll ask for, for somebody to do what I do, and they can't find it. So, and I even have people in England who contact me, and Australia, and they'll ask me if I know anybody in their area who does what I do, and I don't. I would love to be able to provide that for other people. So, years ago, when I realized that this was different, what I'm doing, that was when I decided to start educating people on what I know and what I've learned. And so I guess for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with me, because I'm just a person doing dreadlocks here in Virginia, United States, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm a hairdresser. I've been doing hair pretty much my whole life, but as a professional, I've been doing it for about 17 years. And at one point, I decided to lock up my hair, and I couldn't find anybody to do it for me, so I figured it out on my own. And I have a background in sculpture and in interior design, and so you've got shape, form, structure, all of that comes into the information that I'm applying to how to make dreadlocks. I didn't have access to any tutorials. I guess I didn't explore it deep enough, so I went ahead and I figured it out on myself first, and I did a lot of trials and tribulations. I actually went to 2 different locticians in my area to try and get maintenance on my hair, and I found them to be not exactly what I was looking for at the time. They were either just twisting my hair, or they were crocheting my hair and backcombing my hair at the root, which didn't make any sense to me. It all fell apart, like a week later, the backcombing and the crocheting, and it was incredibly painful, and it took hours and hours and hours. I mean, I almost passed out. So I knew that I had to come up with something to work on myself, because I couldn't rely on other people to give me what I needed. And so, I figured it out. I figured out what made sense to me. And then eventually I started taking clients and applying that information to their heads. And, 13 years later, here I am, and I've worked on tons of people. I mean, I work on dreadlocks almost every day of my life. Different people, different backgrounds, different hair types, different issues. I have people that travel from other states to have me, reconstruct their dreadlock issues that they've come in contact with. So I'll just talk a little bit about, what's different about my method. I work on the internal aspect of the dreadlock. And so most people work on the outside, whether they're twisting it and smoothing it out into a shape, or whether they're interlocking it, the caging method. And that is where you see people taking a little crochet hook and wrapping the hair around the exterior of the dreadlock. and you will see that the root looks straight still, and then it's pinched in, and the hair is, wrapped around back and forth, back and forth. Just depends on who does it. That method has been really common for many years. It was taught by one school online, and a lot of people took those classes and then went out and taught their own classes, and then those people then went and taught their own classes. When it comes to any type of hair design in the world, when you go to a hairdresser or a loctician, I think that the number one goal tends to be make me look better. And I also want to make people look better every day. But that's not my goal when it comes to dreadlocks. My goal when it comes to dreadlocks is to get each lock on your head to be structurally sound. It's truly what's going on in my mind is I'm thinking about the internal structure of every dreadlock. I'm thinking about the density, I'm thinking about the shape, I'm thinking about the long-term wearability and health of the dreadlock. And I want that thing to be strong forever. I want you to be able to hang from it. I want you to be able to not have weak spots. I want them to be consistent in density from root to end. And that is not an aesthetic thing. That is an integrity thing. That is something that is supportive and will not break off over time. You're gonna like this. I don't know how many of you out there use these little cones to put material inside. But one thing you'll find is that if you do not pack them properly, you will have issues with how they function. Okay? This is a good metaphor for dreadlocks. If you pack this thing too loose, it's not going to last as long because it's going to be weak. All right? This thing is it's loose, it's flat, it's gonna be weak, right? If I pack it inconsistently, then I'm going to have hard spots and weak spots, right? And if I pack it where there is weak spots and inconsistencies in the density, that's going to be an issue too. It's not going to work right. Now, if I pack it too tight, it's not going to work either, is it? If I sit here and I use these tools and I pack it extra tight so I can get as much in there as possible, number one, too much product is going to be shoved into a small space. There is going to be no oxygen flow through there. And if we were comparing that to a dreadlock, oxygen flow would be related to, let's say, movement, softness, flexibility, right? If we cram too much product or hair into this small space, it's going to be too tight, too hard. It's not going to move. It's not going to breathe, right? That thing is hard as a rock. It's not going to work right. This is the same for dreadlocks. There needs to be, in my opinion, the thing that I focus on is going to be density, flexibility, movement, breathability. I want those dreadlocks to be as close to natural as possible because they just last longer when they're like that. They feel happier. They move, they breathe, they train the new growth. They require less assistance. And they look better. They don't look hard. They don't look braided. They don't look twisted. They just look soft and spongy, the way that nature would create them. And some people will use the word matted because that is the look that it gives but in a small, narrow window that I've created. The other thing that I focus on is sectioning. Sectioning with me is very different from the sectioning that I see on videos online and out in the street and the things that people give me. If you take somebody's head and you just section it in straight lines, you are not taking account anything natural about that person's scalp or hair growth or patterns. So the way that I teach it is going to be very different. And again, the purpose of that is longevity, comfort, and you're not going to end up with the same amount of loose hair or hair coming out of the scalp with my method, because the grid is going to be laid out based on my understanding of how hair works. And that comes from my background of being a hairdresser. I never came at it from the concept of this needs to look perfect, this grid needs to look perfect. I didn't have that background of education. I didn't have that requirement out of my dreadlocks. It was all about laying it out so that it worked with that particular person's head. And I learned that because when people would come to me to get their hair done and they had their dreadlocks created by other people, I could see how creating a pattern of the sectioning layout on the back of the head, I could see the problems that it would cause down the road, and I would have to fix them. And the way that I would fix them would be to basically redo the grid over time with that person, if they allowed me to. I think from the standpoint of how I think about dreadlocks is that I feel that everyone's hair can lock up. So there isn't a hair type that I can't lock up. I work on every hair type there is. And, but I don't use the same method for each hair type. I use the method that is, I use my thinking and understanding about dreadlocks and hair types, which is also what I teach. And then I apply that to that person's head, and a magical new method is created just for that person. It's all roughly the same concepts, but it's just done in different ways. And so the way that I'm thinking about it is that I want to mimic what nature is going to do when it comes to freeforming. I want to mimic that in a faster and more organized method. That does not mean that I don't believe in freeforming. That does not mean that I don't appreciate the beauty of freeforming. A natural freeformed head of dreadlocks is like a beautiful sculpture that cannot be mimicked, okay? But the process of how hair locks up naturally can be sped up and mimicked. I am not creating a look, I am creating an environment. So I'm creating a structural space that I want the hair to do naturally what it does on its own. So I'm just giving it the parameters. I want you to lock up in this area, and I want you to do it in a way that is consistent and stays soft and flexible. So that means there's not a lot of force. That means they're not going to be hard. That means that you're going to have to still use patience and learn patience, because I'm just giving it parameters, and I'm giving it a designated density, which is hard to describe unless you take my class. I'm giving it parameters, designated density, and then I'm allowing it to do what it does on its own. And then the client comes back for their maintenance, and I am putting the hair back inside and then continuing to allow it to do what it wants to do on its own. So the patience is going to come from you trusting that process and understanding that if we go slowly and we just stick to the program and we allow the hair to do what it does, what it's going to do is going to be creating locks that are extremely consistent and soft, and the up by the scalp, where the dreadlock has started locking, it's going to inform the new growth on how to lock up. So over time, your dreadlocks become smarter and smarter, and they learn how to lock up close to the scalp on their own. Most of the time, what you're gonna find is that it's gonna be a very consistent dreadlock that's open and soft, and that comes up to the straight hair at the root. And then over time, it keeps tightening and tightening as it grows out. That's gonna be different from what you see out there. And that has to do with how we treat the roots with much intention. Our crochet method is not going to be haphazard and just repetitive and painful and not thinking about each individual hair. Our crochet method is going to be very, very thoughtful and intentional and trying to consider every single hair on that head where we know it's putting it in the right position and the right density. So that requires a lot of thought, a lot of practice, a lot of knowledge on how to use your tools, and that's what I'm teaching. If you're approaching dreadlocks with my method, you're going to be coming at it from a place of like respect and nature. I always knew that dreadlocks were something that people did at a time in their life when they were ready to make a commitment to themselves to live a life that they were really proud of. And that tended to be something that wasn't always conscious for people. It was a pattern that I noticed that happened to people, and it was something that happened with me as well. I was ready to make a change in my life. I was ready to be, on a path that was more spiritual, more natural, more in line with the person that I wanted to become. And it just naturally called to me. My hair started locking up on their own. And I was like, okay, this is happening. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna figure it out. I don't have any judgment on people who lock up their hair because they think it looks cool. I will say that if you're coming at it from that approach, then there's going to be some disappointments that you face. And that's the kind of stuff that I see on all the dreadlock forums when people are talking about their dreadlocks, is that their expectations of perfection are very high. And it's because probably they're coming at it from a place of appearance rather than thinking about the long-term story that your hair is going to tell, because everyone's hair does tell a story long-term. And I've made videos about the journey of dreadlocks and what happens and how your dreadlocks become a unique creation or sculpture that happens to you based on your life, the things that you do, and the way that you treat your hair. So the reason I made these classes is because apparently it seems that the way that I'm approaching dreadlocks is unique in comparison to what is being offered to people in their states. So in Virginia, we have a lot of locticians. Even in my salon, I have 3 locticians plus the people I've trained that don't work in the salon that I can forward people to, all using my method. Outside of Virginia, that is a different story. And so this class that's coming up at the end of February, I have people coming from other states that are going to be learning my method and then bringing that method to their state. And eventually I would love to be able to travel to other states and maybe find a group of people, maybe a group of hairdressers who already have a space, or a group of people who want to open a business, maybe people who want to do a traveling loctician service where they come out to you. I mean, that's the cool thing about this, right? Is that when you have this career, you can go to people's homes, you can have people come to your spot, you can open a salon, you can already be in a salon and add this to your services that you already offer people. You could travel to festivals and have booth setups. This is a really flexible career path. And there are clients everywhere. And I know that because they're contacting me every day. So the clientele is there, the need is there. And just giving people another option, I think is the world that we live in, right? Is that we want to have more than one option for a service. I mean, if you want to get a massage, you can get a Swedish massage, Thai massage, deep tissue massage. Like there's a million different massage types that you can get. And so we're at a point now where this industry is busy enough that more than one option of method should be available to people. I've been doing my method for so long that I can see what the results are on my clients. I can see what 12 years of my method looks like and matures like on my clients. So to me, I have zero doubts about my method. I know that it works. I know that I've been perfecting it. In terms of my education, I've been teaching classes now for so many years that I have updated my syllabus so many times, and I've updated my teaching methods so many times that I can see the success rate increase in my students' performance when they get done with my classes. We have plenty of time to do hands-on experience in the salon with each part that we learn. When I teach classes, I teach my first workshop, which is all of the fundamentals of dreadlocks. Terminology, history, culture, anatomy, the tools, when I say anatomy, I mean the anatomy of a dreadlock, understanding it, really deeply understanding how dreadlocks work, and then learning how to create them. And then the workshop 2 is where we learn all about how to do maintenance on dreadlocks and how to take care of them after they've been completed. And also then we dive into all of the issues that are going to come your way and learning how to approach each issue, because there are so many issues that are going to come your way when people have had their hair either freeformed or worked on by other locticians. What I often find is that a lot of people will have their hair worked on by multiple locticians, and they'll have multiple issues that we need to sort through to get the hair back on track so that it's growing strong and people can feel really confident about their hair when they leave. So there's 2 workshops, and each workshop with a 4-day class, both of those workshops will each have their own hands-on day in the salon. And if we cannot get 4 days out of everybody and models, then we're going to do 3 days where we do the 2 workshops back to back, and then the 3rd day is the in-salon day. I'm going to be renting out a space for the first time because the class is going to be larger than normal. And so that's the other reason I'm trying to increase it to 4 days, is because more people means more questions, more talking, more time. Anyway, I'm restructuring the class to offer even better education than I was offering before. And right now, if people sign up for my class before February 13th, then they are going to get 10% off of each class. So we have Zoom calls where we discuss the questions that anybody has regarding what I'm teaching, the format, where it's happening, how much it costs, what you can expect to leave with. All those questions are answered. If you don't have time to join a Zoom call, you can just reach out to me and ask those questions directly. You can go to my Instagram page, Nature's Crown EDU, and you can see question and answers there posted. So there's a lot of ways. I'm very easily accessible and try to always make time to answer everyone's questions as much as possible. So please feel free to reach out if you have any more questions about me, my classes, or how I do dreadlocks.